presentation. So, Christine, you're going to present it live, or you? Is there a?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
So, do you actually already see
You can
my
share.
screen? Not?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. With the presentation or just the Zoom meeting tab? Can you see the slides or just the Zoom window?
We can see one slide.
Okay, perfect. Well then, so if any of you now actually end up having questions about the previous presentation, maybe there's going to be some partial overlap in these slides, which, well, as you just heard, I'm also a co-lead of the infrastructure SIG. But earlier in this year, we actually conducted a little survey just to get a bit of a feel of where the community is at, what is working, what is not working, etc. And while I may have a little bit of a bias from the infrastructure perspective, I hope that this sort of sheds some light on the broader community. And this is a brief look at what the survey actually said and what we are already doing about it, which again has some overlap with the previous presentation, of course. So let's take a quick look at the stats of the survey. Honestly, a little bit modest. So maybe a recurrent thread throughout this presentation is please get involved. ONNX is only getting stronger with a stronger community. And if we conduct another survey, please, that also includes responding to the survey. So in any case, the survey in question actually ran from February to April. And we had, well, 33 responses across 12 questions. Now, maybe we are not the we may have learned also something about making surveys, and I'm sure next time maybe we can also ask some more orthogonal questions. Either way, let's go through some top level findings from the survey. So maybe the first one, maybe the most important one, is how are actually people using ONNX these days? And while there were several answers possible, I think people also were able to use some free text here. There were some recurring themes here. So maybe not particularly surprising, also looking into the details of the answers here, so not necessarily. It's not necessary that the bullet points below can be just purely derived from the stats from the bars above, but maybe just have to take my word for it. So not surprisingly, ultimately people use ONNX to then, well, use the ONNX artifacts that they created. So meaning that they want to deploy their models in production and or want to interchange it from one framework to another. Seems pretty reasonable. And then sort of not necessarily exclusive. They may also want to run optimizers on it. Again, not surprising. And then throughout several of these answers, actually looking in detail what people wrote, tooling in general was a recurring topic. All right. So with this top level part out of the way, let's dive a little deeper. Or maybe let's dive into the areas where we can actually improve and get better. So here's the question that essentially asks, okay, what is the most friction? And again, we had some recurring themes showing up throughout the survey. So one, probably the most predominant one, is people were asking for a faster or better evolution of the ONNX specification with regard to LLMs, and while sort of putting that, maybe I can put on my camera so you can see my gesturing. And maybe that also means that the quality of the specification at other times. So we want to evolve into new operators, and we also want to improve the quality of the specification at other times. And another recurring topic of friction, unfortunately, was converters. So that may be here in tooling and debugging. And then again, maybe a little bit overlapping on different topics here, version compatibility and version compatibility and backwards compatibility is partly in converters, runtime, and maybe also the specification where it's a bit unclear. But either way, these are recurring topics. So I used those 3 points to essentially derive some not necessarily to-dos, but like as a bit of an entry point of what we are actually doing. All right. So let's take the first one, the stability and the evolution of the specification. So I think anyone who actually took a closer look at the specification may have come across some operators that are a bit underdefined. So definitely some room for improvement there. Maybe, again, operators are just simply missing or used to be missing at the time of the survey for the use in LLMs. And then generally speaking, there's some interest in expanding our support for statistical operators. So what are we doing about this particular part? So, well, one step is that better processes, hopefully, at least in my opinion, lead to better outcome, higher quality. So we are trying, it's an iterative process. We are definitely not there yet, but we are trying to find a better process of how to propose new operators, how to find common ground between different stakeholders, and then actually just converge on a better proposal in less time with less friction by sort of having an established process rather than winging it every time. And at the same time, I think it's also very important to just lower the barrier of entry. Again, many people may have actually seen that some definitions are unclear in the operator's definition. But right now, honestly, it's not the easiest to actually amend the specification. Ultimately, you have to edit some C++ code files, which is not necessarily the best developer experience. So I think if we just lower this barrier of entry, hopefully we can actually just get more people involved, and then hopefully the specifications can become better all by themselves, so to say. And then, of course, I mean, it's 2026, and in many ways, I think these operators are, I mean, they are derived, for example, from PyTorch. Using AI here can also be a big boon. So I think we'll be seeing more of that actually, to just go through the specification, find these weaknesses, and then hopefully fix them faster. Okay, so much about the specification. Let's move on to the next top-level item, runtime support. Now, this is the ONNX community meetup, and of course, runtimes, even though I'm maybe most involved in the ONNX package itself, runtimes are obviously a very important part of the community too. So what were some pain points that people were mentioning here? Partly it was, for example, missing execution providers like WebGPU, generally just missing kernels. That's actually dear to my heart in ONNX runtime, or just generally performance issues. So what can we do about it? Again, here the we is maybe a bit unclear. If I now sort of put on my ONNX infrastructure hat and primarily a maintainer of the ONNX package, I think that just having a cleaner specification already hopefully leads to better downstream implementations. But then another thing dear to my heart, I'm working on this since a while, is that we actually get a official conformance test suite that essentially just goes through all data types and has like just, yeah, makes it easy to compare a given implementation against the reference implementation, for instance, and then essentially runs a fuzz test on it. I think something like that would be extremely valuable for downstream implementations to then again lead to better results. And also in the previous presentation from Andreas, I think what also shined through was that we are working hard on getting the ONNX package in a better shape. And I hope that this will also lead to just faster integration downstream. Whenever we make a release of the ONNX package, that stuff just works. People can pick it up downstream faster, and then we just end up with better support faster downstream. That's at least the hope. Yeah, and then lastly, converters, and okay, I also added optimizers here. Reiterate what are the problems. Okay, we have a bit of a scattered ecosystem. I think everyone who tried to convert a model has run into this. There are more presentations on this in this regard later tonight, and I think there's still a lot of discussions to be had where we are actually what to do about it. Then some converters are definitely of varying quality, I'm afraid, and then there's just lacking documentation. I actually really think that ecosystem is difficult to navigate for these reasons here, but there is a happy path actually that does work pretty well, but we just actually have to get it into the hands of the users. And how would we do that? Well, obviously improve documentation. So the ONNX package does have a lot of documentation if you consider word count, but I think the signal to noise ratio can be quite improved. So I think this would be something very, very worthwhile doing. And then generally speaking, again, more discussions on this happening later today, to just develop a more coherent user story. Yeah. All right. But now all of this was maybe, of course, stuff that we want to do because, well, I'm actually already over time. But I think we should really also not forget that we also had this question. Is ONNX generally heading in the right direction? And most respondents were actually pretty happy of how things are doing. Well, not everyone. We definitely still need to improve. But I think it's very important that actually most people are actually pretty happy. And I think we do deliver very good value and we solve a problem that has no alternative solution, actually. And I think doing a good job. So given that this was a very speedy presentation, no need for another summary. I just want to say thank you to everyone already involved. And well, if you are not actually involved already in some of our packages, please get involved. I think one of the best ways to actually ensure faster implementation of features, etc., better quality is if we just grow our community. So please get involved. And yeah, we have regular SEC meetings for all different topics. So that's the most important part. So much from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, so I guess yeah, on a couple of those topics, we will hear more in later presentations today. So yeah, more about some of these later. So I guess we can now go on to the next presentation.
Excellent. All right. I'll stop sharing.